24th, 2024, Jamie. Rate cut number two consecutive Bank of Canada rate announcement cuts. So our overnight rate is officially down to 4.5%, which means all of you in variable rate mortgages are excited, rejoicing.
Saving $15 every 1,000 or 100,000 of mortgage.
Hey, it adds up.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially when we see multiple rate cuts in a row. There's one in June, one in July. So anyone with a variable rate cut comparatively to May is now paying roughly $30 less per $100,000 that you have borrowed.
So for a $500,000 mortgage, you're saving what, $150 a month?
$150 a month.
There you go.
Pretty good. I think maybe the biggest part of this rate announcement, though, was the aggressive hints that more rate cuts are right around the corner. And I think that is what, I think more so than the 0.5%, because that is not going to make a big difference in the Greater Vancouver real estate world in the short term. But even just talking to consumers, people that are actively looking or thinking about making a move in the next 6 to 12 months, the optimism is starting to come back a little bit.
I would say so.
And I think that's just due to Mr. Tiff Macklin and the kind of hints that more rate cuts are coming soon.
Well, let's acknowledge that this last rate cut was July 24th, the middle of summer. Vancouver tends to have this seasonality to it where the middle of summer is a bit of a lull, a little slower period. A lot of people go away. Not everyone, of course, but I would say we're seeing that and feeling that now. So I think that the rate cut that just happened won't show its colors right away. But very curious to see what the fall market brings, with two favorable announcements, another announcement September 6th, then October 25th, then December 6th. That's 3 more before the year's end. And based on the last one, it seems likely that another cut will come, which means fall market could be busier than the last few fall markets we've experienced. And just for the record, the last couple falls have been very slow. And
I was going to say, it's hard to not be busier than last year's fall. Last year's fall is maybe the slowest few-month period we've ever seen in our careers.
Well, I think one, jumping ahead prediction that I would have for this fall is that I anticipate the sales numbers to be higher than last fall's numbers, would be my guess if I were to take a wild stab at it. And when you look at the sales that have happened this year, like even July's stats will be out soon, but they're not out yet. But June stats were showing that sales in Vancouver were down in terms of sales volume compared to last year. So it was, we were less homes sold this June compared to last June. But I think there's a little more future optimism this June compared to last June. And I think the rate announcements that just happened won't make the world much more affordable for most, but it will send a bit of a signal of optimism that maybe the bottom is behind. And those that have been on the fence might get off the fence this fall.
Let's ignore August because, as you said, typically the summer is August is one of the slower months of the year. Let's look at, got some stats for you, Jamie. The last 30 days sales ratios. And do you think the fall's sales ratios numbers will be better or worse than they are in July? So
right now,
last 30 days, I'll just run through a handful of them just to kind of, and it's pretty similar to what we've talked about in previous market updates throughout 2024. But New West condo sales ratio as of July, 21.3%. Vancouver condos are on the low end at 13%. It's kind of pretty similar for strata properties throughout Greater Vancouver. North Van condos, 21% sales ratio. Port Moody condos, 25% sales ratio. Surrey Langley townhomes, 18% sales ratio. Single family is a little slower. The standout winner, like it has been for the last couple of years, North Vancouver, single family, 20% sales ratio. But a lot of the other areas of Greater Vancouver, New West, Langley, Maple Ridge, all between 9% sales ratio and 12% sales ratios.
My guess, so just to be clear, are those the last 30 days? As in, could probably have a lot of unregistered sales? Is that?
I went back a week, so I went.
Okay, so you added a little bit.
I went to June 23rd just to give that little more buffer.
Yeah. So it might be a couple percent under the actual numbers, but lower sales ratio than we've seen them before. Mm-hmm. I looked at a few things on how certain cities we work in often have compared this year versus last year. And there's anomalies. I wouldn't say there's a consistent pattern. And I guess what I see by that is Burnaby, for example. So June sales from this year to last year for Burnaby was basically the same, 65 sales both years. So detached homes in Burnaby last June 2023, June 2024, had no percent down or up in terms of sales volume. Condos were down 19%. And this is randomness. When you take stats from 1 month, you're going to have anomalies. But June sales for New West condos were the same as last year. Oddly enough, both Junes had 82 sales. So just randomness. Detached sales were down 5% for New West houses in terms of sales numbers, sales volume. But Coquitlam, just to kind of show the randomness, Burnaby, 0% down June over June. Coquitlam, 36% down June over June. And is there a difference between Coquitlam and Burnaby that's significant to show that much of a stat change? No. So it is randomness. But I will say there is the sales ratio, there's built up inventory from previous months. So the headlines that you get when you get the headline that's listings are way up and there's too much product on market. When you isolate the good product that people are buying, it's not terribly oversaturated. But there is products that people aren't buying that are very oversaturated. So just to give you an example, it's aside from the sales ratio, I like to look at how many listings sell for full price or above. And I looked at the last 60 days just of straight sales. So there's going to be sales in the last 2 weeks that haven't made this list, but the data is still pretty strong. I wouldn't say it's as strong as we saw, in previous markets, but for Burnaby detached homes in the last 60 days, 39% of the single-family home sales sold for full price or above. So 39%, so 4 to 10 listings essentially got full price or above. That being said, those are the listings that sold, not the listings that don't. So there's a number of listings that just continue to sit on market. New West was 28% in the last 60 days, sold for full price or above. North Van, 35%. Coquitlam, a little lower, 17%. One thing that kind of stood out too is just the days on market is building up a little bit more. So, when if we were doing this 2 years ago, we would be saying the average days on market is 7 or 8, or the median days on market is 7 or 8, because nearly every listing sells after the first opening week. Now the average days on market's kind of in the 20 to 30 days range. And keep in mind, average usually means that a couple listings that sell have 100 or 200 days on market, and then a lot of them that sell are 7, 8 days on market. So it is a big range that can happen, but days on market is building up a little bit. I'd love to talk about some of the not so hot properties, Denny. So you dabbled on a few.
Too.
You got, here, let me go first, okay? Because I'm looking at new construction and higher end properties. So when you get the $3 million plus segment, Coquitlam detached, over $3 million. There were 4 sales in the last 60 days and 104 active listings. So very poor sales ratio on that one. I'm not going to do the math, but let's call it around 4%. Burnaby, over $3 million last 60 days, 13 sales and 107 listings. So high end is not moving like the affordable price points are. But I will say one thing that kind of shines light with these higher end properties, a lot of them are newer custom built homes or newer homes that are, some of them brand new homes. And Coquitlam had in the last 60 days 3 examples that I can think of brand new homes that sold in the 5,500 square foot range on 8,000-ish square foot lots, that when you do the math on it, they basically sold for $300 a foot. So what I mean by that is if a house sold for, if a 5,500 square foot times 300 foot, let's call that around math on the spot, Denny, 1.7. Yeah. And then the land value, that's call it 1.5, 3.2. The math kind of worked out exactly that much. So I don't think the builders are making a big profit on these sales, but they're getting rid of inventory. And if you are in the market of buying or building a new home, just recognize you can buy an existing home that someone put their heart and soul into for $300 a foot. And if you build a home from scratch, you're going to go through all the planning, all the processes, and still probably spend $300 a foot on construction, but you get exactly what you want at the consequence of thousands of your hours. But high-end single family isn't moving. And the new construction, the high price per square foot stuff, the brand new condos, like Burnaby was a prime example because Burnaby has some high price points. They're not moving as well. But I want to mention Burnaby because Burnaby has the highest price per square foot sales that have happened. Not many of them, but Metrotown had a few sales that cracked $1,500 a square foot. And to be clear, what that is a 498 junior one bedroom that sells for 751 or 752 plus GST. So you're basically spending 800 grand or nearly $800,000 on a junior one bedroom when you're buying new construction. New condos, 0 years old, so 2024 built or newer, on the MLS. In the last 60 days, there were 47 sales and there are 360 listed when you look at New West, Burnaby, and Coquitlam as a whole. So for brand new condos, it's a 10% sales ratio, approximately. That's a lot of stats, Denny. Those too many numbers, but in short, a lot of people buying little boxes that are struggling to move, but the ones that seem to be moving best are the small ones, the small junior one bedrooms, because when you have a 900 square foot place selling for 1,400 a foot or 1,300 a foot, that becomes like a 2-bedroom getting 1.2, 1.1 million, which less buyers exist for.
Yeah. One of the other areas that is very slow at the moment when economic downturn happens and interest rates go up is recreation properties. We have a listing coming up on a main island, so been doing a lot of.
But that's the hottest island of all the islands, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I got some insider information. My uncle lives over there too, so was chatting with him, and he's very social, let's say, with people that live over there. Main Island's population stayed roughly the same over the last 35 years until COVID. So he said for as long as he can remember, and he's been going there since he was a kid, the population was about 700 people that lived over there. And COVID happened. A lot of people started working from home. A lot of people are moving out of the city. And Main Island is one of the areas that blew up. Their population almost doubled from 2020 to 2022. And apparently now a lot of people are finding that there's really nothing to do on Main Island. There's not any source of jobs or anything like that. So if you don't work from home, it's tough over there. And a lot of people are moving back. So they have a record number of inventory right now. There are 38 homes for sale. And in the last 30 days...
With a population of... that used to be 700, now 1,400.
He said it's about 1,300 now, yeah.
1,300,
yeah.
Okay.
But comparing to a busy year, currently, 2024, there's been 8 sales on Main Island this year. In a busy year, 2021, right after COVID, there was 30 sales this time at the end of July. So what is that? That's a quarter of the sales.
I imagine the numbers are pretty similar to pre-COVID numbers for Maine, because I think there was years where those islands were just ghost towns in terms of transactions.
Totally, yeah. I didn't really look into too many recreation properties, but I have some friends in Kelowna that say their market is very difficult to move product, especially the more recreation stuff a little bit outside the city. I have a friend whose house has been on the market for 1.5 years out there that is just outside of Kelowna. So is there going to be a turnaround time for that kind of product?
We had a few clients transact on the Sunshine Coast recently, and I think the overall message I got from them was that the market is much slower out there. But there also seems to be a bottom price where a family home that's under $1 million gets attention. Yeah. So, if you get a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom townhouse or house depends on the area or what product types they have, but Sunshine Coast has more houses. But $900,000, $800,000, it's more active in those price ranges. There still is families that need places to live, and going outside of the city, I think, will be a growing trend that we'll see in the years ahead. I say that because when COVID hit, the gap of the price gap between living in the city and living out of the city narrowed.
Yeah.
It used to be significantly cheaper to move from, say, Burnaby to Abbotsford or Chilliwack. Not that many people going that way, but let's say more commonly Moose Bay or Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
And now that gap has narrowed a bit, but I think that gap will expand a little. And I say that because I think that recreation properties won't perform as well as urban, city properties. And there's just more family housing options in those markets. So high rate, as the rates come down, as houses become more affordable, I think that we're going to see a similar trend where the city gets hotter quicker, and then we see another wave of exodus. And Main Island might blow up at that time, Daddy.
That's what we're hoping for. We have 3 rate announcements left for 2024. What's your prediction?
Well, I mean, my prediction means nothing, but what I hear from others is I get the sense that there's likely to be another cut. And I think that we haven't, well, one, I mean, let's just timestamp this. We're still in July. The rate announcement happened last week. We have no time frame to really see. We have a long weekend ahead. We're in the middle of summer. There's really no time here to see the impact of it until probably a month from now. And in a month from now, it may not be that impactful. But I think my guess is we'll see another quarter point cut. My guess is that the sales this September, October, November, December will be higher than last September, October, November, December in terms of volume. I don't think anything's going to be upward trending in prices. I don't think anything downward trending might be new construction and luxury, but I don't think it's trending down harsh because I think people have limits to the haircut they can take. But that'll be another episode we'll talk about, is just the landscape for new construction right now, because pre-sales aren't as sexy as they used to be. Nope. But no, my guess is prices will remain relatively flat. The kind of line I've been using often is it's weird. Some listings hit, some listings don't. It's not trending upward or downward. That's what we're feeling. And a turnkey property that has more positive features than negatives are the ones that perform the best. The ones that have an awkward layout, a busy street, a little more rundown. Buyers are pickier, so they're struggling a little more.
I think at the end of 2024, our overnight rate for the Bank of Canada is 4%. I think there's going to be another half cut. Whether that is, I've heard some rumors that they're thinking there's going to be a 0.5% cut coming up in the next 2 meetings, or 2 quarter points. But I think at the end of the year, we're 4%. I agree with your market analysis of what we think is going to happen in the fall. I think sales numbers are higher this year than they were last fall. But we probably don't see any upward pressure on prices yet. I think that if it happens after 0.75 or 1% more rate cuts. And that probably is not going to be the case until next spring or summer.
Yeah, I think you can get away with rate cuts in the off season of real estate, and it doesn't have as big of an impact. If you do a rate cut in like an April, May, right in the middle of busy spring market, I think it would have a bigger impact than if they did the rate cut on December 6th. But I believe next spring will be an upward trending market. Maybe not for everything, but for townhouses, family houses, single family homes, entry level condos, entry level 2 bedrooms, the stuff that we typically sell in the suburbs. I think they're all due for a little bump.
It's quite curious to see what municipalities through this last 2.5 year rate cycle have like totally outperformed the rest. And North Van is an outlier to me, where single family in North Van feels like it's either at peak pricing or above peak pricing of early 2022 for a lot of single family, the entry level single family, the townhomes too. They maybe had a small drop, but it seems like in the last 6 to 12 months, they've had a little bit of a run in prices. Yeah. Versus, go out to Langley, and Langley, we're looking at townhomes that are probably still 15% off peak pricing of early 2022, and single family, maybe slightly less than that, maybe 10%. But there's a lot of townhouse listings in Langley. We have one coming up, so I've looked a lot into it. And if you don't price like correctly and almost sharp, you're not selling.
No. Yeah, I think the data that shows the products that are moving okay now are like, we have a townhouse under $1 million, but it doesn't have to be under $1 million. A townhouse around $1 million, a house under 1.8. In certain markets like North Burnaby, a $2 million house is very attractive as well. But where the sales ratios are, call it 20%, or where a quarter of the listings are seeing full price or above, single family homes, townhouses, certain condos in certain markets, those ones that are performing okay right now are the ones that are going to be blowing up next spring or the spring after. They're the ones that, and I say by blowing up, I mean, double digit price increases year over year, like a 10%, 15% price jump. Do I think prices are going to jump 10% from now till next spring? That's a pretty bold prediction, but I could say, yeah, I think by next summer, there's a good chance. I would say, if I were to guess, I would say yes. I think a house that is selling for 1.6 or 1.8 today by next July or next August, 2025, I think could be a 1.6 home, could be a 1.75 home, a 1.8 home, could be a 1.95 home. If the rates continue to go down the way they are, but that's a optimistic prediction. There's also an argument to say it's flat.
I remember April 2020, we did a podcast. The world was shut down. We had no clue what was going on, how long this was going to last. And we made a comment that like, this is the time to buy right now. And within 12 months, market values were 20 or 25% higher than they were that day. So we were right at least one time. We were right, at least once.
We got one right.
But I think we're in a similar scenario right now that if you're looking to upsize, if you're looking to move from condo to single family, now is the time. These next like 3 to 6 months, I think the landscape of upsizing is going to look significantly better today than it does at the end of next spring. And what that means, or what I think that means, is single family probably will go on a bit of a run, whether that is a 5% lift, 10%, 15%. But I don't think condos are going to see the same thing, at least in the short term, because there's more inventory, because they're less desirable, because local governments are doing things like increasing notice to tenants. It's de-incentivizing investors, and there's just going to be less people that are wanting to purchase condos, I think, in the next 12 months. So that jump to single family or to the upsizer product, like a 3-bedroom townhome, that gap, I think today looks a lot better than it does in even less than a year, but like next spring.
The listings we've sold have, and in the last 2 months, I'd say, or a lot of the last month anyway, the ones we've sold have gotten less offers than they would have had 6 months ago, or definitely 2-3 years ago. Some of the products that we have listed or pending, they're great homes for the price point. Like it's a far better buying condition right now, where you get to see a listing, not sell in week one. You get to go in with a conditional offer subject to inspection and financing. You get to negotiate one-on-one with the seller a lot of the time. That can turn on a dime, and it can go back to subject-free mayhem in no time. And yeah, they're hard to say if it's going to be between now and spring of 2025 or May, June 2025. But at some point, people seem to think alike in the city, and the mob will come of buyers, and there won't be enough supply, and it will be chaotic again.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think whether we were talking at the end of July, whether it's August to December of this year, or whether it's early next year, I think there's going to be a window where it remains favorable for buyers until that next wave, which, if I were to guess, it's going to start showing its colors around March or April next year.
Mm-hmm. Last thing on rates, because this is supposed to be a rate announcement podcast. Yeah. The prime rate now is 6.7. A lot of mortgages are getting a discount in the range of like 0.8. So that puts if you're in a variable mortgage, that puts your new variable mortgage in the range of like 5.8, 5.9 right now. I just had a client lock in a 3-year fixed, which was the best one I've seen recently at 4.74.
That's really good.
3-year fixed, really good. So rates are trending downward, and I think so. Once we see that like variable rate come below the 5% mark, I think that's where we see activity pick up quite a bit. Right now, we're, like I said, 5.8, 5.9-ish for variable.
Yeah, I kind of took a peek at Rate Hub before coming here, and that 3-year is a pretty phenomenal option right now, because when you think of what will the lending environment be like in 3 years, I mean, that's a good one. Tease you up for a good renewal. So you said prime minus 0.8-ish on a closed variable. That's 25-year amortization. That works out to, well, I do the math, 6, 7 minus, so high fives.
Yeah.
So call it a 5. Maybe best case 5.85 right now for a closed variable, but it could go down after a few more. Should go down after a few more rate announcements over the term. 3-year at 4.75, and I think the 5 years are coming in around 4.5, if I recall. But I don't. If that doesn't seem like a big enough gap between a 3 and a 5 right now.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly what 5-year is right now, but I think it would probably be like in that kind of mid to high 4 range right now. And I think most 3s are in the range of 5 right now. 4.74 was like phenomenal. I didn't think that was out there at the moment.
So over the next 12 months, I think one of the consensus or one of the things that I've been hearing is that the fixed rates, the 5-year fixed, isn't expected to go down much. In the next 12 months, I think the expectation is for it to be in the 4 to 4.5 range. So the 3-year might, and the 3-year and the 5-year fix might stay in those 4s, might not improve a lot over the next 12 months. That could be an argument to hold back the market, but the closed variable should reap the benefits of these rate cuts moving forward. And also, even if the fixed rates don't come down and people start seeing these rate announcements happen, I'd like to think there's a little more optimism in the air 12 months from now. We will see.
I think 100%.
Time will tell.
Let's go.